The rain drummed against the windows of Kensington Palace as Prince William walked down the long corridor. His footsteps echoed in the quiet hallway, each step feeling heavier than the last. It had been 3 months since his father, King Charles, had been diagnosed with a serious illness that kept him away from public duties. The weight of additional responsibilities had fallen on William's shoulders. The stress was beginning to show. Catherine had noticed the change in her husband. The man who once smiled easily now carried worry lines across his forehead. Their children, George, Charlotte, and Louis, had started asking why Daddy seemed so tired all the time. William tried his best to shield them from the adult concerns that plagued the royal family. But children have a way of sensing when something is wrong. That Tuesday morning started like any other. William had meetings scheduled with palace staff, a charity event to attend in the afternoon, and several important phone calls to make regarding his father's condition. But as he approached his private office, something felt different. The usual bustle of staff members seemed quieter. The atmosphere felt strangely heavy. His private secretary, James, met him at the office door with an unusual expression on his face. James had worked for the royal family for over 15 years and rarely showed emotion. But today his eyes held a mixture of concern and something else that William couldn't quite identify. Perhaps it was anticipation, or maybe even hope. "Royal Highness," James said softly, "there's someone here to see you. They've been waiting since early this morning. I thought it best to let you know before you entered your office." William paused, his hand on the door handle. Unexpected visitors were rare, especially ones that could make James look so unsettled. The security protocols at the palace were strict, and anyone wanting to meet with a member of the royal family had to go through extensive screening and appointment procedures that usually took weeks or even months to arrange. "Who is it?" William asked, though something in his chest told him this wasn't going to be an ordinary meeting. James hesitated for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "It's a young woman, sir. She says her name is Emma Richardson. She's traveled quite a distance to be here, and she has something very important to tell you. Something about your mother." The mention of Princess Diana made William's heart skip a beat. Even after all these years, any reference to his beloved mother still had the power to stop him in his tracks. Diana had been gone for over 20 years, but her memory lived on in William's heart every single day. He often wondered what she would think of the man he had become, the father he was trying to be, how she would have handled the current challenges facing the royal family. William took a deep breath and slowly turned the door handle. Nothing could have prepared him for what he was about to discover on the other side of that door. As the door swung open, he saw a young woman sitting in the chair across from his desk. She couldn't have been more than 25 years old, with shoulder-length brown hair and eyes that seemed remarkably familiar, though he couldn't place where he might have seen them before. The woman stood up as soon as she saw him, and William noticed that her hands were trembling slightly. She was holding a small, worn leather bag close to her chest, as if it contained something precious that she was afraid to lose. Her clothes were simple but clean, suggesting she wasn't wealthy, but had made an effort to dress appropriately for such an important meeting. "Your Royal Highness," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "thank you for agreeing to see me. I know this is highly unusual, and I'm sorry for arriving without a proper appointment, but I had to come. I've been trying to find the courage to reach out for years, and when I heard about your father's illness, I knew I couldn't wait any longer." William studied her face more carefully. It was something about her features, the way she held herself, that struck him as oddly familiar. It was as if he was looking at a puzzle piece that belonged to a picture he thought he knew completely, but now realized was missing an important part. "Please, sit down," William said, moving to his own chair behind the desk. "James mentioned that you have something to tell me about my mother. I have to admit, I'm quite curious about what could be so important that it brought you here today." Ma sat back down, still clutching the leather bag. She took a deep breath, as if gathering courage for what she was about to say. "Your Royal Highness, what I'm about to tell you might be difficult to believe at first, but I have proof, and I think it's something you deserve to know, especially given everything your family is going through right now." She opened the leather bag and carefully pulled out several old photographs, some letters with familiar handwriting, and what appeared to be official documents. William's eyes immediately focused on the photographs. Even from across the desk, he could see his mother's unmistakable smile looking back at him from the pictures. These photographs, Emma continued, her voice growing stronger, were taken during a time in your mother's life that very few people knew about. A time when she was helping people in ways that were never publicized, never documented in any official royal records. William leaned forward, his curiosity now mixed with a growing sense of anticipation. He had thought he knew everything about his mother's charitable work, her public appearances, and her private struggles. But the serious expression on Emma's face suggested that there were aspects of Diana's life that had remained hidden, even from her own sons. As Emma began to spread the photographs and documents across his desk, William realized that this unexpected meeting was about to change everything he thought he knew about his mother's legacy. Emma's hands moved carefully over the photographs as she arranged them in chronological order. William watched in fascination as images of his mother appeared before him. But these weren't the formal royal portraits or charity event photos he was used to seeing. These pictures showed Diana in casual clothes, sometimes wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses, clearly trying to blend in with ordinary people. Your mother, Emma began, used to visit a small homeless shelter in East London. Every few weeks, not as part of any official royal duty, but completely privately. She would arrive in an ordinary car, dressed like everyone else, and simply help wherever she was needed. She served meals, talked with people who had nowhere else to go, and listened to their stories. William picked up one of the photographs. It showed his mother sitting at a simple table, sharing a meal with several people who were clearly homeless. Her face was animated as she spoke with them, and there was a genuine warmth in her expression that he recognized from his own childhood memories. But what struck him most was how natural and unguarded she looked, far from the sometimes tense public appearances that had defined her later years. "How do you know all this?" William asked, though he was beginning to suspect the answer. Emma took another deep breath. "Because my mother, Sarah Richardson, ran that shelter. She and your mother became very close friends. Close enough that Diana trusted her with secrets she couldn't share with anyone else in her world." She pulled out a letter written in Diana's distinctive handwriting. William recognized it immediately from the notes his mother used to leave for him and Harry when they were children. The letter was addressed to Sarah Richardson and dated just 6 months before Diana's death. "My mother kept all of Diana's letters," Emma continued. "She treasured their friendship and never spoke publicly about it because Diana had asked her to keep their meetings private. Your mother valued having a place where she could just be herself, where she didn't have to worry about photographers, or protocol, or being judged for every word she said." William began reading the letter, and his mother's voice seemed to echo in his mind as he read her words. Diana wrote about feeling trapped by her circumstances, about wanting to do more meaningful work to help people, and about her fears for her son's futures. But she also wrote about the joy she found in her visits to the shelter, how the people there had given her a sense of purpose that she sometimes struggled to find in her royal duties. "Your mother often talked about you and Harry," Emma said. Softly, she worried about how the pressures of royal life would affect you both. She hoped that someday you would understand that being royal was about more than ceremonies and obligations. She wanted you to know that real impact comes from connecting with people who need help, regardless of their status or circumstances. William continued looking through the photographs and letters. Emma pulled out what appeared to be a birth certificate. Her hands trembled again as she placed it on the desk, and William noticed that her eyes were beginning to fill with tears. "There's something else," Emma said, her voice now barely audible. "Something my mother only told me on her deathbed last year. Something that explains why I felt I had to come here today, despite being terrified of what it might mean." William looked up from the documents, sensing that whatever Emma was about to reveal would be the most important part of this extraordinary meeting. The birth certificate was face down on the desk, and he found himself both curious and apprehensive about what it might contain. "My mother and father were never married," Emma continued. "I grew up believing that my father had died before I was born, and my mother raised me alone while running the shelter. She worked incredibly hard to provide for both me and the people who depended on the shelter for food and a safe place to sleep." Emma reached for the birth certificate, but paused before turning it over. Last year, when my mother was dying, she finally told me the truth about my father. She said she had kept the secret for 25 years because she had promised someone very important that she would never tell anyone. But she couldn't bear to take the secret to her grave without giving me the chance to know the truth. William felt his heart beginning to race. Something about Emma's familiar features, her mannerisms, even the way she spoke, was starting to make sense in a way that both thrilled and terrified him. "Your mother," Emma said, tears now flowing freely down her cheeks, "wasn't just helping at the shelter out of the goodness of her heart. She was also checking on me, making sure I was healthy and happy. She was keeping a promise she had made to my mother about looking after me." Emma finally turned over the birth certificate, and William saw his mother's name listed as a reference contact. But it was the father's name that made his breath catch in his throat. The space was blank, but there was a handwritten note in Diana's writing that simply said, "A dear friend who cannot be named, but will always be loved. My mother told me," Emma whispered, "that Diana used to say I had my father's eyes. The same blue eyes that she fell in love with. The same eyes that you have, Your Royal Highness." The room fell completely silent except for the sound of rain, still pattering against the windows. William stared at Emma, finally understanding why she looked so familiar, why her presence felt so important, and why this meeting was about to change both of their lives forever. He was looking at his sister. The silence in the room stretched on as William tried to process what Emma had just revealed. He stared at her face, now seeing what his subconscious had recognized from the moment she walked in. The shape of her nose, the way she smiled nervously, even the way she held her head when listening, all of it reminded him of his own reflection, and more importantly of his father. "I don't expect you to believe me immediately," Emma said quickly, misreading his shocked silence as doubt. "I know how this must sound. I brought everything I could find to prove that I'm telling the truth. My mother kept detailed records of everything." She pulled out more documents from her bag, medical records, school reports, and dozens more photographs spanning 25 years. In picture after picture, William could see his mother visiting Emma at different ages. There was Diana helping. A 5-year-old Emma with a puzzle, Diana at Emma's school play when she was 10, Diana pushing teenage Emma on a swing at a park. "She never missed my birthday," Emma said, wiping tears from her eyes. "Even when she was traveling or had important royal events, she would find a way to see me. Sometimes it was just for an hour, sometimes longer. Would bring me books and tell me stories about faraway places. She taught me to be kind to everyone, regardless of whether they were rich or poor." William picked up a photograph of Diana and Emma from what appeared to be Emma's 16th birthday. They were sitting in a small cafe, sharing a piece of cake, both laughing at something. Diana looked happier and more relaxed than William had seen her in any public photographs from that time period. "After she died," Emma continued, "I felt lost. My mother tried to explain that Diana wouldn't be visiting anymore, but I was only 12 years old. I didn't understand why someone who had been such an important part of my life had suddenly disappeared. It took years before I was old enough to understand who she really was and why our relationship had to be kept secret." William finally found his voice. "Why are you telling me this now? After all these years?" Emma looked down at her hands. "Because my mother made me promise that if anything ever happened to her, I would find you and Harry and tell you the truth. She said that you deserved to know you had a sister, and that I deserved to know my brothers. But more than that, she thought Diana would have wanted us to find each other." She pulled out one final letter, this one addressed to Emma and Diana's. Handwriting. "Your mother wrote this for me to read when I turned 21. She explained everything about my father, about why she couldn't publicly acknowledge me, about how much she loved all 3 of her children." William took the letter. With trembling hands, as he read, his mother's words painted a picture of a secret relationship that had resulted in Emma's birth, and Diana's determination to be part of her daughter's life despite the impossible circumstances. Diana wrote about the joy Emma brought to her life, especially during the difficult years when her marriage was falling apart and she felt isolated within the royal family. "She wrote that she hoped someday I would meet you and Harry," Emma said softly. "She wanted us to be a family, even if it could never be publicly acknowledged. She said that you two were the lights of her life, and that she hoped I could be part of that light somehow." William set the letter down and really looked at Emma for the first time since she had made her revelation. Now that he knew what to look for, the family resemblance was unmistakable. She had inherited their father's coloring and bone structure, but her expressions and gestures were pure Diana. "I've been following your life from a distance," Emma admitted. "I watched your wedding on television and cried because I wished I could have been there. I've seen pictures of your children, and they look so much like you did when you were young. I have photo albums that my mother kept of you and Harry growing up, pictures that Diana would bring to show me." The magnitude of what Emma was telling him began to sink in. Not only did he have a sister he had never known about, but his mother had lived a completely separate life for years, one filled with joy and love that she had never been able to share with him and Harry. It was both wonderful and heartbreaking. At the same time, "I work as a teacher now," Emma continued, seemingly needing to fill the silence, "at a school in a poor area of London, helping children who come from difficult situations. I suppose I inherited Diana's desire to help people who don't have many advantages in life. I've never wanted anything from the royal family. Not money, not recognition, not anything. I just wanted you to know that you have a sister who loves you and Harry, even though we've never really met." William stood up from his desk and walked to the window, looking out at the rain-soaked palace gardens. His mind was racing with questions, emotions, and implications. How would he tell Catherine? How would Harry react? What would this mean for the monarchy? But more than anything, he felt an overwhelming sadness that his mother had carried this secret alone, and that he had missed 25 years of knowing his sister. When he turned back to Emma, he saw that she was watching him with the same hopeful, nervous expression that he remembered from his own childhood when he was waiting to find out if he was in trouble, or if everything would be okay. For the first time since she had arrived, William smiled. "Emma," William said, his voice filled with emotion, "I believe you. And I'm sorry that you've had to carry this secret for so long, especially after losing your mother." The relief on Emma's face was immediate and overwhelming. She had clearly been prepared for rejection, disbelief, or even anger. Instead, William walked around his desk and, after a moment's hesitation, opened his arms to embrace the sister he never knew he had. As they hugged, both of them began to cry, tears of joy, sadness, and 25 years of missed connections. "I was so scared you would think I was lying," Emma sobbed against his shoulder. "I was terrified you would have me thrown out or arrested for making up stories about your mother." "Never," William said firmly. "Mother always taught Harry and me to recognize truth and kindness when we saw it. You have both in abundance. I can see it in your eyes, the same way I could always see it in hers." They sat back down, both wiping their eyes and laughing a little at their emotional state. William felt as if a piece of his life that he hadn't even known was missing had suddenly fallen into place. The resemblance between Emma and Diana was becoming more apparent by the minute, not just in her physical features, but in her mannerisms and the way she spoke about helping others. "Tell me about your life," William said. "I want to know everything. What was it like growing up? What are your dreams? Do you have someone special in your life?" Emma smiled, the first truly relaxed expression she had worn since arriving. "I live in a small flat near the school where I teach. It's not fancy, but it's home. I love working with the children. They remind me so much of the kids your mother used to talk about when she visited hospitals and schools. She always said that children were honest about everything and that being around them kept her grounded." She pulled out her phone and showed William pictures of her classroom, her students, and her simple but cozy apartment. "I have a boyfriend named David. He's a doctor who works with low-income families. He knows about Diana being my mother, and he's been incredibly supportive through all of this. He actually encouraged me to contact you after my mother died." William studied the photos, seeing a life that was modest, but clearly filled with purpose and joy. It reminded him of the values his mother had tried to instill in him and Harry. The importance of using whatever advantages they had to help others. "Mother would be so proud of what you've become," William said. "She always worried that Harry and I would lose touch with ordinary people and their struggles. But you've never had that problem, have you?" Emma shook her head. "Growing up the way I did, I saw firsthand how hard life can be for people who don't have safety nets. Your mother made sure I understood that having advantages meant I had responsibilities to others. She never wanted me to feel sorry for myself about not having a traditional family or a father who could acknowledge me publicly, William thought. About his own children and how different their lives were from Emma's childhood. George, Charlotte, and Louis would never want for anything material. But they also might never experience the kind of authentic connections with struggling people that Emma had grown up with. "I need to tell you something," William said. "Our father, King Charles, he's been very ill. The stress of everything has been enormous for our family. Marie and I have been trying to support him while also managing our own responsibilities." Emma's expression immediately became concerned. "I know. I've been following the news. That's actually part of why I finally found the courage to come forward. Life is so uncertain, and I realized that if something happened and I never told you the truth, I would regret it forever." William nodded. "I think meeting you might actually be exactly what our family needs right now. Mother always said that love had a way of appearing when people needed it most. She believed that family, real family, was about more than just blood relationships or official titles." He paused, thinking about the implications of what he was about to say. "I want you to meet Catherine and the children. I want you to be part of our family in whatever way feels comfortable for you." Emma's eyes filled with tears again. "You sure? I don't want to cause problems or complications. I know how complicated royal life can be, and I never expected anything like that." "I'm absolutely sure," William said firmly. "You're our sister, you're George, Charlotte, and Louis' aunt. You're part of our family, and we've already missed too many years together. I won't let us miss any more." He picked up his phone and began typing a message. "I'm texting Catherine right now. I'm telling her that I have someone very special I want her to meet, and asking if she can clear her schedule for this evening. Then I'm going to call Harry." Emma looked nervous again. "What if they don't believe me? What if they think I'm trying to take advantage somehow?" William smiled and showed her a family photo on his desk. "Look at this picture of me and Harry when we were children. Look in that mirror over there. The resemblance is unmistakable. Besides, Catherine has excellent instincts about people. Harry has inherited Mother's ability to see straight through to someone's heart. They'll know you're telling the truth the moment they meet you." As William made plans for Emma to meet the rest of the family, he realized that this unexpected revelation was bringing him more joy than he had felt in months. Despite all the complications it might create, having Emma in their lives felt like a gift from Diana herself. A reminder that love and family could appear in the most surprising ways. The rain had stopped, and sunlight was beginning to stream through the office windows, illuminating the photographs of Diana and Emma that were still spread across his desk. For the first time in a long time, William felt hopeful about the future. That evening, Catherine paced nervously around the family's private sitting room in Kensington Palace. William had called her earlier, his voice filled with excitement and emotion, telling her only that he had something extraordinary to share, and that someone very important was coming for dinner. The children had been told they would be meeting a special friend of Daddy's, and they were buzzing with curiosity. "Daddy, when is your friend coming?" Charlotte asked for the 10th time, pressing her face against the window to watch for cars. "Very soon, sweetheart," William replied, checking his watch. He had spent the afternoon with Emma, taking her to meet some of the palace staff and helping her feel more comfortable in the formal surroundings. She had been overwhelmed by the grandeur of everything, constantly worried about breaking protocol or saying the wrong thing. When the doorbell chimed, William felt his heart rate increase. This moment would change everything for his family, and he hoped desperately that it would bring them joy rather than confusion or conflict. Emma entered the room wearing a simple blue dress that Catherine had helped her choose during a quick shopping trip that afternoon. She looked elegant but approachable, and her nervous smile reminded William so strongly of Diana that he had to take a deep breath to maintain his composure. "Catherine," William said, taking his wife's hand, "I'd like you to meet Emma Richardson." "Emma, this is my wife, Catherine." Catherine stepped forward with her characteristic warmth, but William could see the questions in her eyes. Emma looked so familiar, yet Catherine couldn't place where she might have seen her before. "It's wonderful to meet you, Emma," Catherine said genuinely. "William has been very mysterious about you all afternoon. He seems quite excited about something." Emma glanced at William, who nodded encouragingly. They had agreed that he would. share the truth with Catherine while the children were playing, but Emma was clearly struggling with nerves. "Your Royal Highness," Emma began formally, but Catherine quickly interrupted. "Please, just Catherine. We're very informal here in the evenings." Before Emma could respond, George, Charlotte, and Louis came racing into the room, curious about their visitor. They stopped short when they saw the unfamiliar adult, suddenly remembering their manners as they had been taught. "Children," William said, "I'd like you to meet Miss Emma. She's someone very special." Charlotte, always the most outgoing of the three, stepped forward first. "You have pretty hair," she announced. "It's the same color as Daddy's." Emma knelt down to Charlotte's level, and William watched in amazement as his daughter immediately gravitated toward her aunt. There was an instant connection, the kind that sometimes happens between people who are meant to be in each other's lives. "Thank you," Emma said softly. "You're very pretty too. You have your daddy's eyes." Louis, not to be outdone by his sister, approached with his favorite toy airplane. "Do you want to see my plane? It's red like the real ones?" "I would love to see it," Emma replied. And William watched as she listened with genuine interest while Louis explained every detail of his toy. Her natural way with children was obvious, and William found himself thinking about how much Diana would have loved watching this scene after the children had shown Emma their toys and told her about their favorite games. Catherine suggested they go with their nanny to get ready for bed. As soon as they were alone, Catherine turned to William with raised eyebrows. "All right," she said, settling into her chair. "What's this all about? Emma seems lovely, but I can tell there's something big you're not telling me." William took Emma's hand in a gesture of support and looked at his wife. "Catherine, what I'm about to tell you is going to sound unbelievable at first, but it's true, and it's going to change our family in the most wonderful way." He began explaining everything that had happened that morning, showing Catherine the photographs and letters that Emma had brought. As the story unfolded, William watched his wife's expression change from confusion to amazement to joy. "You're Diana's daughter," Catherine said to Emma, not as a question but as a statement of wonder. "You're William's sister." Emma nodded, tears threatening again. "I know it's a lot to take in. I've been living with this knowledge for 4 years, since my mother told me the truth, and it still feels surreal sometimes." Catherine stood up and walked to Emma, studying her face intently. "Now I know why you looked so familiar. You have William's chin, and your smile is exactly like Diana's in all the photographs I've seen. The resemblance is remarkable." She sat down next to Emma and took her hands. "Welcome to the family," Catherine said simply. "We've been waiting for you, even though we didn't know it." Emma began crying again, overwhelmed by the acceptance and warmth she was receiving. "I was so afraid you would think I was trying to cause trouble or take advantage somehow. I never wanted anything except to know my brothers." "The only trouble you're causing," Catherine said with a smile, "is that I now have to figure out how to keep 3 more grandchildren happy when they find out they have another aunt. They're going to be over the moon." William felt his phone buzzing and saw that it was Harry calling from California. He had texted his brother earlier, asking him to call when he was free for something important. "It's Harry," William said. "You ready to meet your other brother?" Emma nodded nervously as William answered the video call. Harry's face appeared on the screen, and William turned the phone so that Emma could see him. "Harry," William said, "there's someone here I want you to meet. Someone very special, who has something incredible to tell us both." As Emma began to share her story with Harry over the video call, William watched his brother's expression mirror the same journey from confusion to amazement that Catherine had just experienced. When Emma finished speaking, it was a long moment of silence before Harry's face broke into the biggest smile William had seen from him in years. "Well," Harry said, laughing through his tears, "this is definitely the best news I've had all year, Emma. I can't wait to meet you in person. When can I come home?" 3 days later, Harry arrived at Heathrow Airport on the earliest flight he could book from Los Angeles. William and Emma were waiting for him at the private terminal, both nervous and excited about this first in-person meeting between the siblings. Emma had spent the previous days getting to know Catherine and the children, and the natural ease of their relationships had convinced William that this reunion was exactly what their family needed. When Harry walked through the arrival gate, he spotted Emma immediately. The family resemblance that had struck William so powerfully was just as obvious to Harry. Without hesitation, he dropped his bags and walked straight to his sister, pulling her into a tight embrace. "I can't believe you're real," Harry said, his voice muffled against her shoulder. "I kept thinking this might all be some kind of dream." Emma hugged him back just as tightly. "I've been watching you from a distance for so many years. Seeing you happy, seeing you find love with Megan, watching you become a father. I felt like I knew you, but you didn't even know I existed." The three siblings stood together in the airport, creating their own little bubble of joy, while travelers and staff walked around them. For William, the moment felt like a completion of something that had been missing his entire life without him even realizing it. On the drive back to Kensington Palace, Terry bombarded Emma with questions about her childhood, her work, and her memories of Diana. Emma answered everything with patience and joy, clearly as eager to connect with Harry as he was to know her. "Mother used to tell me stories about you too," Emma said. "She was so proud of both of you, but she also worried constantly about the pressures you faced. She used to say that she hoped someday you would find ways to use your positions to help people who really needed it, the way she tried to do." Harry turned to look at her from the front passenger seat. "Did she ever mention her hopes for you? What she wanted your life to be like?" Emma smiled. "She wanted me to be happy and to remember that having advantages meant I had responsibilities to others. She used to say that kindness was the most important gift anyone could give or receive. I think that's why I became a teacher. I wanted to help children the way she helped people." When they arrived at the palace, Catherine was waiting with George, Charlotte, and Louis, who had been told that morning that Emma was actually their aunt, their daddy's sister. The children had accepted this news with the easy adaptability of youth, more excited about having a new family member than concerned about the unusual circumstances. "Aunt Emma," Charlotte called out, running to embrace her. The title came naturally, as if she had been using it her whole life. That evening, the extended family gathered in the same sitting room where Emma had first met Catherine and the children. But now King Charles was there too, having felt well enough to join them for this extraordinary family meeting. When William had called to explain the situation, Charles had been shocked but ultimately overjoyed at the prospect of meeting another grandchild. "Emma," Charles said, his voice still weak from his illness but filled with warmth, "I want you to know how sorry I am about everything your mother went through and how proud I am of the woman you've become. Diana would be absolutely delighted to see you sitting here with your brothers." Emma looked around the room at her newly discovered family, William and Catherine holding hands on the couch, Harry playing airplane with Louis, Charlotte showing, Charles her latest drawing, and George reading quietly in the corner, but occasionally glancing up to smile at his newly discovered aunt. "I never dreamed it would be like this," Emma said softly. "For years I imagined this meeting happening, but I always pictured awkwardness and complications. Instead, it feels like coming home to a family I've always belonged to, but just never knew." William reached over and squeezed her hand. "That's exactly what it is. You've always belonged here, Emma. Mother made sure of that by raising you with the same values she tried to give Harry and me. You're not just our sister by blood, you're our sister in every way that matters." As the evening progressed, they looked through more photographs that Emma had brought, including some that William and Harry had never seen before. Pictures of Diana looking relaxed and genuinely happy, often with young Emma, showed a side of their mother that had been hidden from the public and even from them. "Look at this one," Harry said, holding up a photo of Diana and teenage Emma painting what appeared to be a mural on a wall. "Oh, she looks so carefree. I don't think I ever saw her look quite like this in any of the photos from our childhood." Emma nodded. "She said that when she was with me and my mother at the shelter, she could just be Diana, not the Princess of Wales, not someone who had to worry about every word being analyzed or every gesture being photographed. Just a woman who wanted to help people and spend time with her daughter." Catherine looked at the photo more closely. "She's wearing jeans and an old sweater. I don't think I've ever seen a picture of Diana dressed so casually. That was her uniform at the shelter," Emma laughed. "She always said that fancy clothes made people uncomfortable when they were struggling to find their next meal. She wanted everyone to feel like they were talking to a friend, not royalty." As the night grew later, Charles excused himself too. Rest. but not before giving Emma a long hug and telling her how much it meant to him to see his son so happy. The children were eventually taken to bed, though Charlotte made Emma promise to have breakfast with them the next morning, when it was just William. Catherine, Harry, and Emma left in the room. The conversation turned more serious. Emma, William, said we need to talk about what this means going forward. The media attention, the public interest, the impact on your privacy and your normal life. Emma had been dreading this conversation. I don't want any public attention. I never have. I just wanted to know my brothers and be part of your lives. In whatever small way was possible, Harry leaned forward. It doesn't have to be public if you don't want it to be. We've all learned how to have private family relationships that stay out of the newspapers. But Emma, you should know that if you ever want to be acknowledged publicly as our sister, we would be proud to do that. The choice is entirely yours. Catherine added, we can keep this completely private, or we can share it with the world. Either way, you're family now, and we'll protect that however you want us to. Emma looked around at the three people who had welcomed her so completely into their lives. For now, I'd like to keep it private. I love my simple life, my students, my boyfriend David. I don't want photographers following me to work or turning my classroom into a circus. But knowing that I have brothers who love me, and that I can be Aunt Emma to those beautiful children, that's more than I ever dreamed possible. William stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the palace gardens where he had played as a child with Harry. Do you know what I keep thinking about? How Mother always said that love finds a way. She couldn't be here to introduce us herself, but somehow she still made sure we found each other. She left us breadcrumbs, Harry agreed. All those photos, all those letters, all those visits to Emma. She was planning for this moment even, if she didn't know when it would happen. Emma pulled out one final item from her bag, a small jewelry box that she had saved for last. She gave this to me on my 18th birthday. She said it belonged to her grandmother and that someday I should share it with my brothers. Inside the box was a delicate gold locket with 3 tiny diamonds. When Emma opened it, there were miniature photos of William and Harry as young boys on one side, and a picture of Emma as a child on the other. She carried us all with her, Emma whispered. Even when the world thought she only had 2 children, she was thinking about all 3 of us. William took the locket with trembling hands, seeing for the first time physical proof that his mother had thought of him. Harry and Emma as a complete set, 3 children who belonged together even when circumstances kept them apart, as they sat together in the quiet palace room, surrounded by photographs and memories, and the overwhelming joy of finally being complete. William realized that his mother had given them the greatest gift imaginable. Not just the gift of finding each other, but the gift of understanding that family is about love. It's not just genetics or titles or public recognition. The door that Emma had been afraid to knock on, that William had been afraid to open, had led them all to exactly where they belonged, together, as the family Diana had always dreamed they could be. Outside, the London sky was clear for the first time in days. 3 siblings sat together, finally whole, planning a future filled with the love and connection their mother had always wanted for them. In that moment, William knew that wherever Diana was, she was smiling, knowing that her children had found their way to each other at last.